Have it. Yeah.
All right, so here we go. To kick it off, Honda, which actually is not a company that is actually foreign to aviation, they do actually have a very successful jet out in the marketplace. Honda has decided that it's their time to jump into the EVTOL kind of market because with that, Honda has actually debuted some great looking prospects for what's basically going to be their quote unquote helicopter. And what this comes to is directly from, I think this one's from Auto Week, but it's on a couple other places right now that Honda gets some of these plans out for their helicopter, a robot, a moon base, and a rocket ship. But more importantly, to the one that we're going to talk about for a little bit at first here is their eVTOL, which is basically a passenger pod and sitting below 8 propellers. Now the weird part is that it can go about 100 miles, but actually it's going to go about 400 miles because in the article they do state that Honda is looking to get into what is going to be mostly a hybrid unit, which is they're going to use some sort of pure electricity that can go 100 miles, then a turbine that can make it go up to 400 miles. Now, there's a couple of caveats here because this thing actually looks very, very similar to something that's coming out in the marketplace already, which is from Beta Aircraft, which we've talked about here before on the show, and we're going to show a picture of that in a minute. However, this says a little bit more about, and we're gonna talk about the other stuff. But what's really important here is that Honda Honda has a jet. Honda had a light jet that entered the light jet category back when light jets seemed like they were going to take over the marketplace. Back 2008, they were pretty hot. Market kind of collapsed, and the very light jet category never really developed. However, with that said, seeing Honda, another major manufacturer, jump in to what they're talking about an eVTOL future for urban air mobility, this is kind of big news. So we're going to digest that in a minute. However, before we even get into that conversation, one of the things that I do want to say is this is their basic fundamental design, right? Basically, this long bar with about 8 props on it and two pusher props in the rear. However, bad news is it kind of mimics a design that we've already seen from a company called Beta that we've actually talked about here on the show, which is using same kind of rail design, 2 wings, and then a pusher prop. Coincidence? We don't know. What's your thoughts, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, just Mike said there. Honda EVTOL is actually what it's called. Currently, it's a Honda EVTOL. It does resemble the basic design of Beta aircraft. Aircraft does, and if you have looked at other show about the Beta aircraft or kept up with EV Beta as well, they got some contracts with the other players. They've already got the thing flying. Beta seems to be quite further along. You know, they're doing their thing, and Honda's just saying, hey, you know, we want to. Well, and yeah, specifically talking about the article, but out of the article, just the air EV is I did want to point out just a few small things, right? You did mention that the range is supposed to be electric, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be up to 400 nautical miles on the usually using the turbine hybrid electric power system. And not familiar with that either. Talked obviously about turbine power plants and other types of vehicles before that would be driven by a shaft going off to wherever would
Mm.
it would be just something to note here that it does also specify the turbine in this particular power plant would just be to keep the batteries topped up, right? It's just to supplement the electric power
Correct.
needed for the rotors to, right. So it would just be basically a big generator, and so that does make sense that it would keep a bit of the extra moving components low as possible, right? Then just run cable wherever you need to run cable, so you don't have rotating components or shafts going down all these pylons and whatnot, which is obviously the smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something just a note as far as the hybrid electric power train. And I'm curious to get the rest of the information about it. If we just want to compare real quick again, some similar type of like numbers from the Beta Technologies aircraft. They do talk about. Let me pull it up here. Waiting for it to load. Yeah, so they do talk about the max takeoff weight of the Beta. Something again, we're gonna just say maybe comparable. 6,000 pounds.
Mm.
Wingspan on the Beta is 50 feet. A range of 250 nautical miles. We know setup. They on the Beta talk about a recharge time of 50 minutes, and a cargo of a 200 cubic feet of cargo. That's if it was cargo setup, and then it's a 5+1. So I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
looking at just the size, Honda probably is about the same size as far as passengers. The one picture you showed from the side profile
Yeah.
of the model, the actual, not the render, but the actual model.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You might be able to get more than 5 people in there.
I don't. Well,
I wonder. I'm trying to figure like how big it actually is.
I don't think it's going to be
Um,
super. I mean,
the render looks like
what?
4,
Let's go back to the render because they're both from the same
uh,
article. So
2
the
rows
render's
of
real small.
2, maybe 2 rows of 3. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, I mean, what do you think, man?
Hey, it's well. First of all, this is the first part we could solidify that there's a design that two manufacturers agree that is probably the way to move forward. And Honda, having actual aviation experience in building aircraft, and again, they do make their Honda Jet, which is a beautiful aircraft. If you guys aren't familiar, it's been out there in service now for I think a little on over 15 years. Okay, and it's pretty. It's a nice aircraft. They're actually well sought after, very light jets. They are. Okay. There was a couple other manufacturers like Diamond and Eclipse and others that were in that range, but Honda survived and they actually got theirs out the door. So they're not a stranger to this environment. But it's more to me the biggest news here is that they've got a design, it's comparable to what other people have, and Honda jumping in as a big name means that there's a little bit more validity to this marketplace that could mean business. And one of the things that they do go into this article and they say is that, if they use this thing right, this thing could basically, you could summon it to your backyard. And so if this guy wanted to say go from New York City to Cape Cod, actually the likelihood route there would be New York City out to the Hamptons, but the difference would be he could take this thing, jump on board, and that magic 100-mile to 400-mile range makes a big difference.
Yep. Yep.
Also, the fact that they're going to a hybrid electricity kind of situation speaks to what we've been saying a lot, which is a major, major disadvantage to a lot of these companies that are purely electric. That a hybrid electric with some sort of turbine means that you would weight shed over the duration of the flight. And if you only had minimum battery time to run sort of 45 minutes on board, it also solves a lot of issues with alternates, bad weather, being able to make the mission a little bit more successful with that range. Now, the difference would be what speed are we talking now? That's a
I don't know.
different
I don't know.
conversation,
I
right?
mean, I'm trying to determine through these renders, dude, if you can tell that the pylons, not the pylons
hmm
that run longitudinally, but the ones that run side to side,
hmm
they are lifting airfoils, right? In the
Right.
shape they do
They look
lifting.
to
They're
be.
lifting bodies, which would make sense, of course.
Right.
So that basically means again you can take the amount of lift you need when you're. So they just use the pusher props to basically keep the aircraft aloft. Then they slow down all the rotors on top of the pylons or turn them off
hmm
or something like what Beta would might. And then of course you can get a higher speed. I would imagine something like this, they would probably again to cut down on noise if they're going to be landing in vertiports as well and
hmm
intercity kind of stuff. They would be using the batteries for takeoff and landing,
Sure.
and the en route the faster parts as well. Fine, and keep the battery topped up, and then best of both worlds currently.
Now, Beta says
Um,
that their top speed is going to be somewhere around 175 miles an hour. Okay, that's what they're predicting with a range of 250. So the thing is, that's almost at that speed of where you would smooth out the ride well enough where this thing could be successful. So here's basically our thing is it's Honda. They're in the marketplace.
right?
They're only showing renders, but that means that there's probably something coming down the pipe. Let us know what you think in the comments
Yeah, they've already
below.
done wind tunnel testing.
Yeah,
They've been doing stuff.
they've been doing
So
it.
we'll definitely keep track of this because again, Honda big player in many different things,
Yeah.
not just automobiles, if you care, but tons of other stuff. They can probably make this happen. So
Yeah. So here's the second part, though. Now,